Eric Dane once said, "If you love someone, you tell them. You say it loud." Millions heard those words and cried, but nobody knew the man behind them. He was fighting battles that would make even the strongest person fall to their knees. Addiction. Depression. Childhood tragedy so devastating, it shaped everything that came after. And then, a diagnosis that would take everything from him. This is a story you are not ready for. On February 19th, 2026, Eric Dane passed away at 53, surrounded by his wife Rebecca Gayhart and their two daughters, Billy and Georgia. What makes this even more painful is the timing. February 19th, 2026. It's exactly 20 years to the day since Eric first appeared on Grey's Anatomy as Dr. Mark Sloan, the character who walked out of a steamy bathroom in a towel and changed. Television forever was gone on the very anniversary of the moment that made him a star. He died from complications of ALS. That stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And it is one of the cruelest diseases known to medicine. It destroys the nerve cells that control every movement in your body. First, your hands stop working, then your arms, then your legs. Then you lose the ability to swallow, then you lose the ability to breathe. Through all of it, your mind stays perfectly sharp. You understand everything that is happening to you. You feel every single moment of it. You just cannot stop it. For Eric, it had started so quietly. Sometime in early 2024, Eric noticed a weakness in his right hand. He figured he had been texting too much, or maybe slept on it wrong. He went to a doctor. After 9 months of appointments with hand surgeons and neurologists, the diagnosis came. ALS. Terminal. No cure. Average life expectancy after diagnosis is 2 to 5 years. But for many, it is far less. In April 2025, he released a short statement to People magazine saying he had been diagnosed with ALS and that he was grateful for his family. It was calm and measured. But 2 months later, he sat down with Diane Sawyer on Good Morning America and let the world see the truth behind the composure. He told Sawyer that he woke up every single morning and was immediately reminded that this was real and not a dream. His entire right side had already stopped working. Said he felt like in a couple of months he would lose his left hand too. Then he told a story that shattered everyone watching. He described a boat trip with his 13-year-old daughter, where he jumped into the ocean but could not swim back. His little girl had to drag him back to the boat. The man who once represented physical perfection on television could not save himself in the water. His daughter had to save him. Said the words that connected every broken piece of his life into one devastating sentence. I am angry because my father was taken from me when I was young. And now there is a very good chance I am going to be taken from my girls while they are very young. He wept on camera. Diane Sawyer wept. Somewhere, millions of people watching. At home felt their hearts crack open. Within hours, the tributes began flooding in from every corner of Hollywood. Ellen Pompeo, who played Meredith Grey beside him for 6 years, shared a recorded message where she said she remembered him walking onto set as McSteamy and having instant electric chemistry with him. She said she immediately just fell in love with him, that she was so proud of him, and that she loved him so much. She also shared something that tells you exactly who Eric Dane was as a man. After his diagnosis went public, Ellen sent him a text saying she was there if he ever wanted to talk. 30 seconds later, her phone rang. He did not text back, he called, because even with his world falling apart, he wanted to hear her voice. Not read her words on a screen? Patrick Dempsey, the man who played his on-screen rival Derek Shepherd, and who was one of his closest friends in real life, had been calling and texting him throughout the entire illness. Dempsey told Parade magazine in January 2026 that Eric was such a wonderful human being with a great sense of humor and that he was so intelligent. He called the whole situation heartbreaking. He'd even tried to get Eric a role in his Fox series, but the ALS had progressed too far. Sam Levinson, who created Euphoria and gave Eric what critics called the role of his lifetime, said that working with Eric was an honor and that being his friend was a gift. Paul Walter Hauser, who worked with Eric on the film Americana, posted something so raw and honest it stopped people in their tracks. He wrote that they had tried to book gigs together, tried to laugh at the pain, and tried to stay sober. That last line, tried to stay sober. 5 words that told the world there was so much more to Eric Dane's story than anyone ever saw on screen. But the darkest chapter of Eric's story did not begin with ALS. It began decades earlier. In a small house in San Francisco, when a 7-year-old boy's entire world was destroyed in a single moment, Eric William Melvin was born on November 9, 1972, in San Francisco, California. His father William was a Navy veteran who became an architect and interior designer. His mother Leah was a homemaker who raised Eric in her Jewish faith. He had a younger brother named Sean. For the first 7 years of his life, things were normal. He had a family. He had a father. Then, sometime around 1979, everything fell apart. Eric's parents had separated, and William Melvin died from a gunshot wound. The circumstances have never been fully clear within the family. Eric told Gulf Times in 2014 that his grandmother believed it was an accident, but that everybody had a different opinion on what happened. He described his father as a troubled soul. Years later on the Armchair Expert podcast with Dax Shepard, he described it more directly as suicide. Eric was 7 years old. His mother told him to be brave and to become the man of the house. 7-year-old boy was told to stop being a child because there was no one else left. Then just 4 months later, his maternal grandmother died from a sudden aneurysm. She was the woman they had been living with. 2 of the most important people in his world were gone within months of each other. Eric later reflected on what those losses taught him. He said it teaches you not to really trust anything because everything can go away in a second. That wound would follow him through every relationship, every success, and every failure for the rest of his life. He struggled to form connections with other men because he never had anybody to show him how. He became a chameleon, always trying to be whatever he thought the other person wanted him to be. When it became clear his grades would never earn him a college scholarship for water polo, he made a decision that took more courage than most adults ever show. A month before graduation, he quit school and moved to Los Angeles with $40 in his pocket. He arrived in Hollywood as a teenager with no money, no connections, and no safety net. What followed was 13 years of rejection that would have broken most people. Eric's first on-screen appearance was a tiny part on Saved by the Bell in 1991. After that came a string of guest spots that paid just enough to keep him alive. The Wonder Years in 1993, Married with Children in 1995, Roseanne in 1996, small roles that nobody remembered from a face that nobody recognized. He dated actress Alyssa Milano, who helped him get a recurring role on Charmed as Jason Dean, which lasted about 10 episodes across 2 seasons. He played a doctor on the short-lived ABC drama Gideon's Crossing in 2000 and had a role in the CBS telefilm Helter Skelter in 2004.
Ow.
None of it broke through. For over a decade, Eric Dane was just another handsome guy in Hollywood waiting for a break that might never come. Then, in early 2006, he was cast in what was supposed to be one single episode of Grey's Anatomy. Just one. He would play Dr. Mark Sloan, a cocky plastic surgeon who had an affair with Derek Shepard's wife. In his first scene, he flirted with Meredith Grey. Derek punched him in the face. The audience went absolutely crazy for him. Shonda Rhimes saw what she had and immediately promoted Eric to a series regular for season 3. His debut scene as a regular featured him emerging from a steam-filled bathroom wearing nothing but a towel. The female interns on the show gave him a nickname that would follow him forever: McSteamy. Over 6 seasons as a regular and approximately 145 episodes, Mark Sloan became one of the most beloved characters in Grey's Anatomy history. His friendship with Derek became the show's most authentic male relationship. His love story with Lexi Gray became one of the most heartbreaking romances the show ever told. Eric won a SAG award with the ensemble in 2007. After 13 years of being nobody, Eric Dane was suddenly one of the biggest stars on television. But fame did not fix anything inside him. In fact, it made everything worse. What most fans never knew, what the tabloids only scratched the surface of, was that Eric Dane had been at war with addiction since long before Grey's Anatomy made him famous. It started in high school. He told Dax Shepard that he began smoking marijuana not because he enjoyed it, but because the people around him did. He wanted to belong, he wanted to fit in, so he did what they did. The storm came during the 2007 to 2008 Writers Guild strike. Production shut down. Suddenly, Eric had endless free time and nothing to fill it with. He told Rebecca he was going to smoke one joint. Just one. He told her that if things ever went sideways, he would just go back to AA. His story does not end with the date of his death. It lingers in hospital corridors where interns still whisper about McSteamy, in living rooms where reruns play late into the night, and in the quiet spaces where fathers hold their daughters a little tighter. The image most people will remember is the towel, the smirk, the confidence. But the truth of Eric Dane's life was far more human than the legend. It was a life marked by loss at 7 years old, by pressure to grow up too fast, by the ache of never fully feeling safe in the world. It was a life that soared to extraordinary heights after 13 relentless years of rejection, only to discover that fame does not silence pain. It was a life that wrestled with addiction in the shadows while millions watched him shine under bright studio lights. It was a life that faced depression with honesty when silence would have been easier. And in the end, it was a life that confronted a merciless disease with a kind of courage that had nothing to do with physical strength. In his final year, those closest to him said he became softer, more present, more intentional with every conversation. The man who once struggled to say what he felt became someone who wasted no time saying it. He told his daughters he loved them every single day. He told his friends what they meant to him. He showed up even when showing up hurt. Else may have taken his mobility, but it never took his voice, and he used that voice until he could not anymore. The same man who once delivered a fictional speech about loving someone out loud lived his final chapter doing exactly that. Not perfectly, not without fear, but honestly. For fans, he will always be Dr. Mark Sloan. For colleagues, he was a generous scene partner and a loyal friend. For Rebecca, he was a complicated, enduring love. For Billy and Georgia, he was dad. And for anyone who followed his journey from a struggling teenager with $40 in his pocket to a household name who refused to hide his battles, he became something even more powerful than a television icon. He became proof that strength is not the absence of struggle, it is the decision to keep going in spite of it. If there is anything to carry forward from Eric Dane's life, it is this: say what you feel while you still can. Love loudly. Forgive quickly. Fight for the people who come after you, because time is not promised, health is not guaranteed. And even the strongest among us are more fragile than they appear. And maybe that is why his story resonates so deeply. Because beneath the fame, beneath the headlines, beneath the character names and red carpet photographs, Eric Dane's life was painfully, beautifully human. He was a little boy who lost his father too soon and spent decades trying to understand what that loss meant. He was a young man desperate to belong, willing to bend himself into whatever shape the world seemed to want. He was an actor who endured more than a decade of rejection before the right door finally opened. He was a husband who stumbled, a father who adored his daughters, a friend who called instead of texting because hearing a voice mattered more than convenience. In the end, else did not define him. It revealed him, stripped away the illusion of invincibility that Hollywood so often sells and left behind something raw and undeniable. A man who was scared, yes. Angry, yes. But also determined. Determined to work as long as he could. Determined to advocate for research funding. Determined to look lawmakers in the eye and demand better for the next family who would hear those 3 letters. Determined to leave something behind that was bigger than a character arc or a ratings number. There is something haunting about the symmetry of his life. The role that made him famous began with a bold entrance and effortless charm. The final chapter required a different kind of bravery, one without glamour, without applause, a quiet courage. The courage to let the world see him weak, the courage to admit he needed help, the courage to cry on camera and say he was angry about what his daughters might lose. Not the actor, the father. People often measure a life by awards, by box office numbers, by accolades, at the measure of Eric Dane's life may be found elsewhere. In the daughters who learned compassion by watching their father fight, In the conversations about men's mental health that became a little less taboo because he spoke up. In the recovering addicts who heard him admit he was messed up longer than he was sober and felt less alone. In the ALS patients who saw someone famous refused to disappear quietly. When the news of his passing spread, it was not just shock that filled the air. It was gratitude. Gratitude for the years he gave. Gratitude for the honesty he offered. Gratitude for the performances that made people laugh, swoon, and sometimes cry. But most of all, gratitude for the vulnerability. Because vulnerability is what outlives beauty. It is what lingers after the spotlight fades. Somewhere, a young actor with $40 in his pocket is stepping off a bus in Los Angeles right now, believing the dream might be impossible. Somewhere, a father is sitting in a doctor's office, hearing a diagnosis that changes everything. Somewhere, someone is on the edge of relapse, wondering if they are too far gone to come back. Eric Dane's life speaks to all of them. It says that you can fall and still rise, that you can lose and still love, you can be broken and still be worthy. He once said, if you love someone, you say it loud. In the final years of his life, he did exactly that. In doing so, he left behind something far more enduring than a television legacy. He left behind a reminder. Love while you can. Fight while you can. Speak while you can. Because in the end, that is what remains. In the weeks after his passing, stories continued to surface. Small ones. Private ones. Moments that never made headlines but meant everything to the people who experienced them. Crew members remembered how he learned everyone's name, even the day players and production assistants who rotated in and out. Directors remembered that he showed up prepared even when his body was failing him. Friends remembered late night phone calls where he would check in on them, not to talk about himself, but to ask if they were okay. There was a quiet decency to him that fame never managed to erode. His daughters will grow up with two versions of their father. The one the world knew, preserved forever on screen in high definition, confident and unbreakable. And the one they knew at home, softer, funnier, more vulnerable. A man who made mistakes and owned them, who fought demons and sometimes lost, but who kept trying anyway. They will one day understand the magnitude of what he carried privately, while still showing up publicly, and perhaps that will be his greatest legacy to them, not perfection, but perseverance. Rebecca once described their bond as something that no longer fit neatly into categories. Not simply husband and wife, not merely co-parents, but family in the truest sense. In the end, she was there. Through the addiction, through the depression, through the diagnosis, through the slow, cruel progression of a disease that takes inch by inch. Love does not always look the way we expect it to. Sometimes it is loud and cinematic. Sometimes it is quiet and stubborn and refuses to dissolve, even when the romance fades. What remained between them was not spectacle, it was loyalty. For fans revisiting his work, certain scenes now feel different. Lines carry more weight. Glances linger longer. A speech about love sounds less like scripted drama and more like prophecy. Art has a strange way of becoming more powerful in hindsight. Knowing what he endured behind the scenes reframes the performances. The charm was real, but so was the ache beneath it. The confidence was convincing, but so was the fragility. There is a temptation when someone dies young to reduce their life to the tragedy at the end. That would be too small a container for a story this complex. He was not only a victim of ALS, he was not only a cautionary tale about addiction, he was not only a heartthrob from a hit television show, it was all of it at once. Mosaic of triumph and failure, strength and weakness, light and shadow, human in every sense of the word. If anything, his journey forces a reckoning with the illusions we project onto celebrities. We see the red carpets, the sculpted images, the curated interviews. We rarely see the quiet hospital rooms, the recovery meetings, the therapy sessions, the mornings when getting out of bed feels impossible. Eric chose, especially in his later years, to pull that curtain back, not for sympathy, but for honesty. And honesty is a gift. Long after the trending topics fade and the tributes slow down, What will remain is the imprint he left on people who felt seen by his openness. The man who admitted he was angry, the man who admitted he was scared, the man who admitted he did not always have it together. In a culture that worships invulnerability, that kind of transparency is radical. And so the story circles back to where it began. If you love someone, you tell them. He told his daughters. He told his friends. He told his audience in the only way he knew how, through characters, through interviews, through advocacy, through showing up even when it hurt. His life was not tidy. It was not flawless. But it was lived out loud. That may be the most courageous thing of all.